There is a stretch of the Amazon where the canopy is so dense that noon looks like dusk. Where the rivers twist back on themselves like something trying to escape. Where the humidity sits on your chest like a living weight. Most people who visit the jungle see the edges. The tourist trails. The lodges with mosquito nets and guided walks. But deeper in, past the last outpost, past the last generator, past the last voice you recognize, there is another Amazon entirely. And the people who live there carry knowledge that no university has ever catalogued. Knowledge bought with fear. I first heard these accounts from a woman named Graca. She was 71 when she agreed to speak. Born not on a riverbank but on a wooden platform her grandfather had built in the canopy of a Brazil nut tree, high above the floodwaters that swallowed the forest floor every rainy season. She spent her childhood barefoot in mud, her adolescence paddling a dugout canoe between scattered families who lived so far apart that a neighbor meant someone half a day away. She gathered a sigh. She smoked fish over green wood. She pulled leeches from her ankles every morning without flinching. She married young, buried her husband before she turned 40, and raised 5 children alone in a place where the nearest doctor was a week downstream. Graca was not a mystic. She was not superstitious in the way outsiders imagine. She was practical, blunt, sometimes funny in a dry and cutting way. But when she spoke about certain things, her voice dropped. Her eyes changed. And you understood immediately that she was not telling campfire stories. She was issuing warnings. Graca did not organize her experiences into neat categories. She resisted that. Life in the deep Amazon does not sort itself into lessons. It ambushes you. But over several long conversations, she kept returning to the same core convictions. Certain things must never be done in the jungle. Not because of superstition. Because of evidence. Exposed across 7 decades of living where most people would not survive 7 days. The first thing she ever told me had nothing to do with ghosts or spirits. It had to do with water. She said that the rivers change temperament after midnight. Not gradually. Not like a tide shifting. She described it as a door closing. One moment the river is a river. The next it belongs to something else. She was around 35 when she learned this. Her youngest daughter was sick with a fever that would not break. Graca needed to reach a healer who lived in a community upstream, a man who knew plants that could pull heat from a child's body when nothing else worked. She could not wait for morning. So she loaded the girl into her canoe and pushed off into the dark. No motor. Just a paddle and the current working against her. The night was warm and moonless. She paddled close to the bank, using the silhouettes of the tallest trees as landmarks. For the first hour, everything was normal. Frogs bellowed from the shallows. Caimans slid off mud banks with heavy splashes. A nightjar called somewhere above. The jungle was loud and alive and ordinary. Then, at some unmarked moment deep into the early hours, everything stopped. Not gradually. Not one species falling silent and then another. All of it. Simultaneously. As if someone had pressed a hand over the mouth of the entire forest. Graca stopped paddling. The canoe drifted. The water beneath her was perfectly black and perfectly still. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. Her daughter whimpered softly in the bottom of the canoe. And then the water moved. Not current. Not wind. The surface of the river began to bulge. A slow, rounded swelling, as though something enormous was rising from below. It did not break the surface. It simply pushed upward, creating a dome of black water about 3 meters from the canoe. The dome held for several seconds. Then it sank. Smoothly. Without a ripple. She gripped the paddle so tightly her knuckles ached for days afterward. The swelling appeared again, this time closer. Then a third time, closer still. Each time it rose and fell with the same deliberate slowness. No splash. No wake. No sound at all except a faint displacement of air, like something breathing just below the waterline. Graka did not move. She sat rigid in the canoe, one hand on her daughter, one hand on the paddle, watching the dark water deform itself around her. After what felt like an hour but was probably minutes, the swelling stopped. The river flattened. And then, from somewhere beneath the hull, she heard a sound. A low vibration. Not mechanical. Not animal. Something between a hum and a groan, felt more in the bones than in the ears. It passed through the bottom of the canoe and up through her spine. She began paddling. Hard. Fast. Not caring about noise anymore. She reached the Healer-S community just before dawn, trembling so badly she could barely tie the canoe to the post. The healer, an old man named Zay Farias, took one look at her face and asked what happened on the water. When she told him, he did not look surprised. He looked resigned. He said that certain stretches of river become occupied after a certain hour. He did not say by what. He simply said that between the deepest part of night and the first hint of gray in the sky, the water is not yours. You do not swim in it. You do not wash in it. You do not trail your hand over the side of your canoe. You cross it if you must, but you do not linger. And you never, under any circumstances, look too long at anything you see moving beneath the surface. Her daughter survived the fever. Graka never traveled that stretch at night again. But the rivers were not the only danger. The jungle itself had moods. Graka described the forest canopy the way a sailor describes the sea. Sometimes calm, sometimes restless, sometimes furious for reasons no human could identify. And she said that one of the surest ways to invite disaster was to make yourself heard when the forest wanted silence. She told me about a night when she was barely 19. She had gone with her older brother to collect copaiba oil from a tree deep in primary forest, a full day's walk from their home. They brought hammocks, dried meat, a clay pot, a machete, and a small kerosene lamp. The plan was to tap the tree, collect the oil overnight, and walk back the following morning. Simple work. They had done it before. They set up camp near the base of the copaiba tree. Her brother strung the hammocks. Graka cleared a patch of ground and started a small fire. The forest around them was thick, old growth, with buttress roots taller than a person and vines as thick as a man's thigh. They ate. They talked quietly about family things. And then her brother climbed into his hammock and fell asleep almost instantly, the way people do after a long walk through heat. Graka stayed awake. She was not tired yet. She sat by the fire, feeding it small sticks, watching the flames throw moving shadows onto the trunks of the surrounding trees. The forest was alive with its usual nighttime orchestra. Insects clicking and buzzing. A tree frog with a call like a hammer striking metal. Something large moving through the upper canopy, probably a kinkajou or a night monkey. Then she heard a tapping. Rhythmic. Deliberate. Like knuckles rapping on wood. It came from somewhere to her left, deeper in the trees. She assumed it was a woodpecker, though she had never heard one at that hour. The tapping stopped. Silence. Then it started again, faster this time, and from a different direction. Behind her. She turned. Stared into the dark. The firelight reached maybe 4 meters before dissolving into nothing. The tapping stopped again. She waited. Her brother snored softly in his hammock. Then it started a third time. But now it was clearly not a woodpecker. The rhythm was too regular. Too purposeful. And it was coming from eye level, not from up in the canopy where birds would be. It sounded like someone standing just beyond the edge of the firelight, knocking on a tree trunk with their fist. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. Pause. Graka's instinct was to call out. To say hello. To ask who was there. Her mouth opened. And then a memory seized her. Her grandmother, years earlier, sitting by a cook fire and saying in that flat, matter-of-fact voice she used when she was being deadly serious, "If something knocks in the forest at night, you do not knock back. If something calls, you do not answer. If something imitates a voice you know, you do not respond. Because the moment you acknowledge it, you have given it permission." Permission for what? Graka had asked. Her grandmother had not answered that question. So Graka closed her mouth. She pulled her knees to her chest. She fed the fire until it blazed high and hot. The tapping continued. It moved. Slowly, methodically, it circled the camp. Always from just beyond the light. Always at the same height. Always that same deliberate pattern. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. Pause. As if something was testing each tree, or testing her patience, or testing whether she would break and respond. It went on for over an hour. Graka did not move. Did not speak. Did not whistle. Did not cough louder than necessary. She made herself small and silent and waited. Around the time the first hint of pre-dawn gray touched the canopy far above, the tapping stopped. Not gradually. It simply ceased, mid-pattern, as though whatever was producing it had lost interest or had been summoned elsewhere. The insects returned. A toucan called. The forest reassembled itself into something recognizable. In the morning, she woke her brother and told him. He examined the trees around the camp. On 3 separate trunks, at roughly chest height, the bark had been stripped away in small patches. Fresh wounds in the wood, pale and wet with sap. Something had physically struck those trees. But the ground around them showed no tracks. No prints of any kind. Just undisturbed leaf litter, damp and dark and perfectly flat. They collected the copaiba oil and left. They did not discuss it again for many years. Graka's third warning involved fire. Or more precisely, it involved what happens when your light source fails in a place where it should not. She was around 55. Walking a familiar trail between 2 communities. A path she had taken hundreds of times over the decades. It cut through lowland forest along the edge of a seasonal creek. During the dry months, the creek bed was just cracked mud and exposed roots. She was carrying a basket of manioc flour and a small torch made from bundled palm fiber soaked in tree resin. These torches burn slowly and give off a steady amber glow. Reliable. She had never had one fail. The walk should have taken 2 hours. She had left in the late afternoon, expecting to arrive before full dark. But the trail seemed longer than usual. The landmarks she knew, a lightning-scarred tree, a termite mound shaped like a hunched figure, a sharp bend where the creek bed doubled back, none of them appeared when they should have. She kept walking. The torch burned steadily. The forest around her was quiet but not ominously so. Just the normal sounds of dusk settling into night. After what she estimated was 3 hours, she stopped. Something was wrong. She should have reached the community long ago. The trail beneath her feet looked correct. The direction felt right. But the distance had somehow expanded, as though the forest had stretched itself out while she walked through it. Then her torch flickered. Not from wind. The air was perfectly still. The flame shrank to a blue point, guttered, and died. Darkness crashed down around her like a physical thing. She stood absolutely still. Reached into her basket for the spare resin-soaked fibers she always carried. Fumbled with her lighter. The spark caught. The new torch flared to life. And the trail was gone. She was standing in dense forest with no path visible in any direction. Undergrowth pressed in on all sides. The trees here were massive, ancient, draped in moss and strangler figs. She had never seen this part of the forest before. Or rather, she had never seen this arrangement of trees, this particular configuration of roots and gaps and shadows. Everything was subtly wrong. Familiar species in unfamiliar positions. A forest she knew rearranged into a forest she did not. She did not panic. She had lived too long for panic. She sat down on a root, held her torch high, and waited. She did not walk. She did not try to find the trail. She did not call out. She simply sat and breathed and let the forest do whatever it was doing. After perhaps 40 minutes, she heard the creak. The soft trickle of water over stones. She stood, followed the sound, and within 100 paces she was back on the trail. The community appeared around the next bend, exactly where it should have been. The walk that should have taken 2 hours had taken nearly 6. She told me this story without any dramatic embellishment. She said it as plainly as someone describing a trip to the market. And when I asked her what she thought had happened, she said something that has stayed with me since. She said the forest sometimes folds. Like cloth. It takes a straight path and bends it into circles. It takes a known distance and makes it infinite. Not to trap you. Not out of malice. But because the forest has its own geometry, and sometimes, for reasons we cannot fathom, that geometry shifts. The worst thing you can do in that moment is fight it. Walk faster and the path grows longer. Shout and the forest swallows your voice. The only thing that works is stillness. Wait. Let the fold release. Let the forest put itself back the way it was. The last account Graca shared was perhaps the most disturbing because it involved not a mysterious force but a familiar face. She was 63. Living alone by then, her children grown and scattered to various communities and towns. She kept a small house on stilts near a Blackwater lake. Quiet place. Peaceful. She fished from her dock in the mornings and tended a small garden of medicinal herbs in the afternoons. One evening she was sitting on her porch, watching the lake turn copper in the sunset, when she saw a canoe approaching. A single figure paddling slowly. As it drew closer, she recognized the shape. The posture. The way the paddle dipped and pulled. It was her husband. Manol. Dead for over 20 years. She stood up. Gripped the porch railing. The canoe kept coming. The figure was solid, three-dimensional, casting a shadow on the water. He was wearing the same faded blue shirt he had worn the day he died. His face was turned slightly away from her, as though he were watching something on the far shore. The paddle moved through the water with that same unhurried rhythm she remembered from decades of watching him come home at the end of a day's fishing. The canoe reached the shallow water near her dock. And then the figure turned to face her. It was Manol's face. Exactly as she remembered it. Not aged. Not decayed. Just him, at the age he had been when his heart stopped in the middle of the river on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon 22 years ago. He smiled. And opened his mouth as if to speak. Graca did not answer. She did not smile back. She did not step off the porch. She stood there, hands white-knuckled on the railing, tears running down her face, and said nothing. Because her grandmother's voice was louder than her grief. If something imitates a voice you know, you do not respond. The figure held the smile for a long moment. Then the expression changed. Subtly. The warmth drained out of it. The eyes, which had looked exactly like Manol's eyes, became flat and reflective, like the surface of the lake at night. The smile remained, but it was no longer a smile. It was something wearing the shape of a smile the way a mask wears a face. The canoe drifted backward. Slowly. Without the figure paddling. It slid across the still water, back toward the center of the lake, growing smaller, dimmer, less distinct, until it was just a dark shape on dark water, and then it was nothing at all. Graca sat on her porch until morning. She did not go inside. She did not light a lamp. She watched the lake until the sun came up and the water turned gold and the birds began their racket in the trees. Then she went inside, made coffee, and carried on with her day. When she finished telling me this, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said something I will never forget. She said people from outside think the jungle is empty. They think it is just trees and water and animals. But the jungle is full. It is crowded with things that have no names. Things that have been here longer than people. They are not evil. They are not good. They simply are. And they operate by rules that have nothing to do with human logic. The only protection you have is knowledge. And the only knowledge that matters is knowing when to be still, when to stay silent, and when to refuse what is being offered to you, no matter how much you want to accept it. I left Graka's community the following morning. Traveled downstream for 6 hours in a small aluminum boat with an outboard motor. The sun was bright. The water was busy with life. Dolphins surfaced alongside the hull. Herons stood motionless in the shallows. Everything looked normal and safe and explicable. But that night, lying in a hammock in a riverside guesthouse, I heard something outside. A soft tapping. Rhythmic. Deliberate. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. Pause. I did not get up. I did not look. I lay perfectly still and waited for morning. And eventually, it stopped.